Have you been thinking about whether you should put your podcast on YouTube? There has been a lot of news recently in this space, so I wanted to jump on and update you with everything that's happening on podcasting in YouTube. Hey, my name is Olivia D'Souza. I'm dedicated to helping multi-passionate entrepreneurs turn their dreams into reality by building a career and a life they love and making a positive impact in the world. I'm a podcast and social media manager, a singer-songwriter, a kids music creator, a fadishta, a wife and a mum. I'm the secret weapon behind many 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs, helping them shine a light and call in the people they are here to serve. And now I'm here to help you. This podcast is here to help you learn and be inspired. You'll learn about podcasting, lead generation, business, and all about the real life stories of people behind the businesses just like you. Think of it as a place to hang out with your like-minded business bestie who gets what it's like. So grab a cuppa and hit subscribe so we can hang out again. This is Magnetic Pod, the podcast.
I am here and I'm ready to be brave. Cannot miss me, I'll stand on every stage. I'm available for my destiny to reach my people.
Before we dive in, remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of the tips and the content that will help you thrive in life and in business. So before I get to the YouTube thing, I just want to really quickly give you a background of what's been happening in the space. So it's really interesting that a few years ago, all people cared about was Apple. Then Spotify came along and grabbed a huge market share. And now that I've been helping people for years, it's been interesting to talk to the podcasters and the mindset change. It used to be, I just want to share the Apple link. I just want people to go over to Apple. Now a lot of podcasters that I help are not that interested in Apple, and they should be. So we talk about these things, and we talk about the best way to share the podcast so that people can listen on the different platforms. That's a whole other conversation. But just that people now just think about Spotify. So I guess YouTube's seen this happening and gone, hello, hang on a second, and they've got YouTube Music, don't forget. So now YouTube is moving in on the podcasting space. So it's just so interesting to see how this is developing. So a little earlier this month, YouTube made an announcement about podcasting. There has been some talk for a while about YouTube and podcasting, but this is the latest that I want to share with you. Now, I personally haven't yet put my podcast on YouTube, and I think that's because I know so much about YouTube by working with a lot of people who are in the space and learning behind the scenes about what it takes, that I know that there's definite ways to go about YouTube. So what's happening now with YouTube? I've always said there's two approaches if you want to put your podcast on YouTube. There is either the SEO approach, which is just putting it there basically like an audiogram, and it's just there and it lives there and it's just an extra place to be found and it might come up in searches. It's an SEO thing. Or that's the all-in version of YouTube, where you just want to make sure that you hack that algorithm and potentially get shown to thousands, perhaps even millions of people if you really are successful. So keep that in the back of your mind. So now they are officially pushing podcasting on YouTube. So here are the main points and the recommendations for getting your podcast onto YouTube. First of all, you need to create a playlist on your YouTube channel for your podcast. So that's where you put all the full episodes of your podcast in that playlist. So to create a new podcast, you go to YouTube Studio, click Create, and then New Podcast. Then you enter all of the details, including the title, visibility, description, and artwork for the podcast. And the artwork has to be square. Then you just hit Create to save it. So if you've already got a playlist that you're using for your podcast and you want to make sure it's listed in YouTube as a podcast, you go to your YouTube Studio to Content and then head to Playlists, and then you find the playlist that you want to list as a podcast. Then click the 3 dots you'll see and you'll be able to select Set as Podcast, and that's it. So there you'll be able to also make sure that you've got your title correct, that you've got a good description for your podcast, that you've got your visibility set, and you'll also be able to put a square graphic for your podcast artwork. Potentially you could have a YouTube channel and have your podcast just be one playlist on that channel, although you would have to think about, from a marketing point of view, that it should be serving the same demographic of people, the same people that are coming to you for a particular thing. But you can have just a playlist on your YouTube channel. The next thing with that playlist, you name it the same name as your podcast. No variations, just give it the exact same name as you have it on your podcast everywhere else that it lives. They're calling it a podcast, but officially they are still videos. You upload them as videos to the platform. And the other recommendation is to have a comprehensive description. Don't waste that. Make sure that people know what your podcast is and if it's for them. So basically, I would say just treat that like you would with good copywriting and good marketing, so that the very first line appeals to a want, a need, a desire, something that the person reading cares about. Make it relate to them, make it interesting, make it entertaining, make it a hook that grabs their attention, and then describe what your podcast is, what it's about, who it's for, how it helps, how it entertains. Basically, don't waste that space. It's attention grabbing. It lets people know what it's for. It helps YouTube algorithm, and it helps your people find you. Okay, so let's get into the don'ts. That playlist that you create for your podcast is just for your full episodes. Don't put anything else in there. Don't put little highlight clips in there. Don't put other people's podcasts in there. Don't put other videos of yours there. That playlist is in YouTube. That is your podcast. Don't put anything else in there. Also, put them in order of the way you want people to watch. So if it's a topical, here's what's happening, the latest news, then you would put it as the most recent at the top. And if it's like storytelling, if it's learn ABC things from me or whatever, you might put it from the oldest to the newest. So put it in the order that you want people to watch it in, that makes sense, that serves your listeners the best. Also, just have one playlist for your podcast. That's it. Don't break it up into separate playlists for separate seasons. Just one playlist for your podcast, which makes sense because on a normal podcast that you'd find on Apple or Spotify or whatever, it's just one thing that people are scrolling. So they want it to mirror that, I suppose. Don't add any extra words. For me, I would put the Magnetic Pod. That's what my name is. If you're going to put the Magnetic Pod podcast, that better be because the word podcast is in it. So don't add the word podcast at the end unless that's officially part of your podcast name. And don't forget to add each full episode to the playlist. Don't leave the description blank. Don't waste that real estate. Make sure that you let people know what the episode is about and whether it relates to them, how it helps them. So speak to the person that you have made that episode for. From what I have been observing, looking at the space in podcasting on YouTube, some things haven't changed, and that it is still very much a visual platform that favours and boosts well-edited, beautiful, attractive visual videos. So if you look at the Diary of a CEO or the Joe Rogan Experience, or just head to youtube.com/podcast. The last time I checked, most of what's coming up there still look visually quite impressive, which means that it's got an attractive background, it's well lit, there's things happening, there's often zoom in, zoom out on faces or cut from one person to the other to keep it interesting, or motion graphics or something. So the visuals still seem to matter, which means that it's a commitment. It takes a lot more work if you want to go the all-in approach. So that means that the all-in or SEO approaches still seem to be a decision you have to make. Are you going all in, or are you doing the SEO, just put it there and get it done? Done is better than not done approach. So for example, I've mentioned Diary of a CEO and the Joe Rogan Experience as a couple of all-in approach type scenarios. On the other side, you've got someone like Jenna Kutcher, who has the Gold Digger podcast. Clever name. It's the Gold Digger, not the Gold Digger. How clever is that? Anyway, I really like her podcast. And I know that I have listened to her, and she says that she just does podcasting. She picks a couple of things and doesn't try to do all of the things. So if you look at her over on YouTube, she consistently rates on standard, normal, like Spotify, Apple podcast. She consistently ranks really highly in the marketing space, and she's got a really top ranking podcast. But if you compare that to what's happening on YouTube for her, She doesn't have that many subscribers for her level of fame in what she does, and the views on her podcast for someone at her level are not that big. And it's because she doesn't care, right? Her approach is that she wants to focus on a couple of things, do them really well, and not try to be all things, and she doesn't want to have to get the lighting right, worry about video editing, put on makeup, anything like that. So that's her choice. So she does the SEO approach. So I suspect she might even just have it set up on a platform like repurpose.io, where she does her podcast and then it magically appears. All the thumbnails look the same and it's just done the easy way. So just keep in mind, you can do that and that's fine, and it can help you with SEO. You've got to think about what your goals are and what you're there for. And if it's just to be found in another place, and really you don't necessarily need to think in terms of having millions of subscribers and viewers, you just want enough people to find you, to make a living, to let them know that you exist, to let them know about your offerings. So that's why you need to decide, okay, do I want to go for as many viewers as I can to maximize how many leads I get, or what approach are you going to take? What amount of time and energy are you willing to put in? There's a couple of approaches. There's the done is better than perfect, just get it over there approach, or there's the I'm going to put a bit more effort and make it look beautiful. The best podcasts, their interview ones, tend to be done in person, because making them look perfect and everything, making them look as good when it's over the internet is a bit more complicated, because you can't control the variables of the person on the other end if you have a guest and it's done remotely. So those are the things that you take into account, and you go, well, I'm just going to have a go. I'm just going to pick up a camera. I'm going to film a podcast and I'm going to put it out there. But I really do think that there is a case to be made for just doing some level of video and doing what is manageable for you at this point in time, and at least putting the video on and cutting up that podcast so that you can be on all of the platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all the places. Especially because at this time, as I'm recording this, all sorts of things happening, a lot of changes. There's maybe TikTok is looking like it could be banned in the US, and who knows what's going to happen. And then the changes in the algorithms and all the platforms. It feels to me not a bad idea to not have all your eggs in one basket and use those shorts, at least, short form videos, and put them in various places and have your reach there. And it's another reason why podcasting is really good, because that you own the real estate. So make sure you keep backups of all of your content. But yeah, just on a side note, that's another reason that podcasts are valuable, because as all the other social media platforms shift and change, you can constantly keep putting out your podcasts. Those are the main things to know about YouTube and where it's at the moment. If a new trend comes out, whether it be on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, to get the maximum benefit, if you're a person that jumps on early, then you can get the benefits of that. So now is a really, really, really great time to move into that space. So I'm gearing up to do that myself. It's not something that happens overnight. It's something that happens with consistency, but it's about having quality. It's about knowing what works well, what people are searching for. So if you have any questions or anything like that, send me a message. You can reach me here. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment below. Otherwise, if you're listening on a podcast platform, you can DM me at Instagram at Livy Music Media. So that's Livvi Music Media. And if you want to know what you need to get started in podcasting, I have freebies and resources on my livymusicmedia.com/freebies page. So go check that out, link in the show notes. And if you want one-on-one help and guidance, send me a message and let me know. And see you next time. Bye.
Miss me, I'll stand on every stage. I'm available for my destiny to reach my people. Gonna be a star, so if you pass on me.
Hello.
Hello, it's Livy here. Have you ever wondered about what the key elements are that make a podcast truly stand out? Or maybe you're thinking about starting your own special podcast and feel a bit overwhelmed and don't know where to start. Well, I have something for you. Introducing the ultimate podcast checklist. Da, 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 da. It's a step-by-step guide that covers everything from the initial brainstorming to advanced growth strategies. It's the perfect companion for both new and seasoned podcasters. And the best part, it's absolutely free. Da, 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 da. To grab your copy, simply head to the show notes of this episode and you will find a direct link there, and then away you go. Remember, every podcast started with that initial spark and the right resource, so let the ultimate podcasting checklist be yours.